Hey guys, and welcome to one more episode of Builder Nation. For today's agenda, we have Matt Bilsky with us. He's the founder and CEO of Flex Solutions and the creator of the snake-like robot that is used to navigate and work in challenging environments.
I'm a recovering inventor, or current inventor, contractor, taking people rafting, coach ski racing, what do you name it. But I guess the story that brought us together today is in college, I was helping to maintain some off-campus houses and started working for a landlord. They had a handful of houses at the time. And over the course of 5 years, grew them to 35 in an apartment building. And every time we'd finish a renovation, they'd be like, hey, we forgot to run a wire. Do you mind? And as I like to joke, I was trying to earn my beer money and spend it, not just do it. Like I was pretty good at it, but I realized it was a giant pain to really, upgrade these old homes. And I left undergrad. I'm a Lehigh guy. I'm here in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And so I finished up my undergrad at Lehigh mechanical engineering and was debating grad school. And, a few events kind of worked out in my favor that it's like, oh, I can get a free PhD. And I also realized that they were paying me to get my PhD and they're paying me to teach. And that was this epiphany of, wait, if I'm getting paid to teach, then I can do what I want for my research, right? And I guess maybe a lot of people haven't thought of it that way, but I did, and I found the right advisor, John, out of our entrepreneurship program at Lehigh, who said, hey, why can't you? And I'm like, what am I going to do? I could start a company. And the way that things worked out is if you're teaching and you pay for it, you get to own your patents. So it all kind of worked together. I'm like, well, what am I going to do with this opportunity? And working as a landlord, I'm like, wait, I hate running wires. Why don't I invent a robot that you can put in the wall, have it drive through and drill all the wires, no mess, no nothing. And it just so happened that John was a union electrician when he was in grad school. And he's like, yeah, that would be great. And that's what I did. And so now we know the technology as the FlexBot. The FlexBot here is a 1-inch diameter snake robot. Every link is identical, has cameras, lights, sensors. We can rotate the joints, and we actually have the patented ability to extend. And so like any academic, I spent my time working on this problem. And, from day one, it was really about being affordable and all of this, but was really focused in on how do we make a robot that's 1 inch and can fit in a wall. And I finished my dissertation and then stayed on as a faculty member, teaching product development at Lehigh for a couple of years. And I left the university at the end of 2018 to go into startup life full time. And founded Flex Solutions, which, here we are with the FlexBot. And it was like, what are we going to do with this technology? And I realized, in my opinion, I know this can be a little controversial, is that full self-driving, we're not really there yet. So if our company doesn't even have to worry about roads, we have to worry about inside of walls. That's a heck of a problem. So what can we do with this cool snake that we did? And so I've spent the last couple of years as CEO talking to hundreds of people across construction and maintenance. And, I'm a licensed professional engineer. I've been a contractor, so always enjoyed that construction problem, but spoken to everybody from agriculture to ship inspection to utilities. They all told me they had the same problem I have. They can't get where they need to work and safely do what they need to do. And the way we've really, spun this problem around and we distill it is just how warehousing and distribution loves to talk about the last mile. In inspection and maintenance, it's really that last meter, looking above the ceiling, under the floor. Can you get into these places? And like, say your office over there, somebody bought it and they want to inspect above the ceiling. They got to make a big old mess, all this. What if they could just take a FlexBot, insert it, have it bend to avoid the obstacles, this cobotic smart inspection system, and really get that last meter of data, starting construction, which I love, and then working to other industries as we expand. And today focused on inspection mapping, but we've also looked at putting tools on the end, doing maintenance, and maybe someday going back to that locomotion with all this data we collected, autonomy, all those sort of things.
Wow, this is great. So, okay, I have a lot of information. That was a lot of information received. And I'm really curious because, so you're saying that at the beginning, it wasn't intentional for you to be a teacher, right? It just came up naturally. And then, things kept coming. How hard it was for you in order to find out who your ideal customer was?
I mean, I think if any startup says it wasn't difficult, I don't know. it's difficult. The product market fit search, it's still ongoing for us. I mean, we've honed in, we understand the generalities, and we're still every day learning more about who's going to be the one using it. And I think the big thing is who day one, right? The beachhead, the first person, right? I think everybody who talks to us, and even us, we're all kind of clear on everybody gets a flex spot. They're affordable. We can actually mass deploy these across fleets. But who's the first person? And for us, we're really hearing this in the construction, real estate, major construction firms, property managers, really maybe looking at that scan to BIM initially, and getting the scanners into these places. But there's really other opportunities as well. And so it's a heck of a search, and you just talk to hundreds of people, and I don't know, I like talking, so this is great.
Was it hard for you in order to find, I don't know, investors in the project, at the early stage?
Exactly. I mean, I'm getting a kick out of, for anybody, I don't know when this is going live, it's June 15th, 2022. So at least in the newspapers today, who knows what the newspapers will say in a couple of weeks or when this goes live, but everybody's saying, oh, and startups beware, all of this, and fundraising is going to get hard. Well, I don't know. It never was easy for us. So I mean, maybe for others it was snap your fingers and everything's hunky dory. But I'd like to think that maybe since we've been working hard at it this whole time, it'll just continue to be a full-time job and a lot of work. And you definitely learn a lot. Everybody you talk to is an opportunity to learn how to refine your messaging. And I think one of the difficult things with us is today, we're hardware to begin with. We need, and I know you've spoken to other hardware founders, that we are trying to create the software future that everybody loves. But at the end of the day, you can't write apps until somebody made an iPhone, right? You can't make a self-driving car unless somebody invented the car, right? So you need to have these fundamental hardware innovations that enable the software, the recurring revenue, all the stuff that investors tend to love. You still need to create the opportunities for that. And so right now we're focused on the hardware platform that enables us and even others at some point to really look at the software side. So we're going and always raising, and that's my job, but life's okay.
And I mean, I know that you're kind of like in this side of the company, but I mean, if you're a CEO and the founder, I mean, you have to be on top of everything, right?
I guess the blessing and curse of being the sole founder is I wore all the hats. So I'm the one who actually put this thing together. All of these joints, they can actually rotate here, and we can rotate here, and then we have that extension. And that allows us to, as we go into a space, bend to avoid it in all three dimensions. So imagine like a self-bending coat hanger, or like a borescope, if it could bend itself and drive, but actually support itself in these places. And like our company was one of 3 winners in the Department of Energy's eRobot Prize. We had partnered with another startup, Lamar.ai, Gensler, the world's largest architecture firm, and a construction company, Skyline Capital Builders. And the DOE was looking for technologies to retrofit the outside of a building, the envelope. And so they had this prize over the last couple of years, and earlier this year we won. And basically we were demonstrating, great, they kind of were looking sensing, mapping, and then retrofit. So with the FlexSpot, you can get thermal cameras closer, get that last meter of understanding of what's going on. And then you can also work to map that space. But then some exciting opportunities, and we think a lot of these, this next generation, is on the retrofit, the doing. So like we made a caulk gun that works to demonstrate in a high-rise building, if you can't open the window all the way, you could just stick your hand out and caulk a window without scaffolding and things like that. And then down the road, especially as we can go through walls, because we have the hardware capability to actually climb and move through a wall with our extension, then we can look at spraying foam where it's collapsed, or aerosol sealing, and someday running that wire without a mess. So focusing today on basically getting in and being able to look around things, get around tight places, or if you have a left, right, left, be able to actually do that where, I don't know, GoPro on a stick would go doink, we can actually move around. And then tomorrow moving towards the actual doing and ultimately locomotion.
Wow, that's great. And how hard was it in order to make it like fully autonomous?
Well, it's hard because software is hard, and then hardware, you got to use software, And then you got to write firmware that actually tells the hardware what to do, and you got to build the thing. So for us, I mean, I think a lot of my work, and I'm a mechatronics person, which means I'm really good at mechanical, electrical. I fake it with some software, but I am, I can write some firmware, but I'm not a roboticist. I don't do computer vision. I can't do the path planning. That's where I find experts for that. So as the mechatronics guy, fitting everything into this, 1-inch tube, we have motors, gearboxes, sensors, all of these motors and wires, and the antennas and all of this stuff is embedded in these links. Each link, the camera works, the lights work. I don't have a battery pack on this one right now, but bright lights, and you can keep adding links. So how to actually make it, and as the guy who's actually assembling these things, doing robot surgery under a microscope all day. So I don't know what I'm doing next in life, but I hope it's bigger, because working small here gets a little old. Flex can be big as a company, but our stuff is quite small.
Talking about challenges, I wanted to ask you, what do you think it is, or it has been the biggest technical challenge when it comes to the company that you have ever solved?
The biggest technical challenge, that's tough, because there's a lot of them. I mean, and we keep crossing them off. Steven, our roboticist, I don't know whose research this is out of, but he was like, that you're almost out. You can tell that you've almost squashed all your bugs by how frequently a bug shows up. And everybody's familiar with bugs in software, but you have essentially bugs in hardware too, whether it's jamming or binding, or you realize that a mechanism causes something to change in how it moves that you didn't account for. So you have to, wire management, stuff like that, how you get all the wires, how you attach them. Really, one of the big challenges is how you put the thing together, developing the methods to, put all the pieces into this thing. And it's not like, think laparoscopic surgery versus open heart, right? Like you can't, it's small, you don't have a side access door, right? So you have to think through how all this stuff goes together. And I think the overall, if I had to say, what's the biggest category of issues, is being essentially, especially at this point, we've raised some funds, but we're still pre-seed, we're still, early stage, and getting to this point, a lot of it was bootstrapped, and I had to bootstrap it. So how on no budget can you do this? And think about like a 747 plane. They don't build one, right? The first one off the line is the prototype, but the line that came off of is the full production line, right? Like it's not, and that's kind of, we're at that, I joke, intersection of like power tools and aerospace, where like, oh yeah, we need stuff, but people aren't going to, at least affordably, make it 10 of something a lot of times. So it's been creativity in like how we can either make 10 affordable, or work with stock things, and even with processes. So in a lot of ways, yes, making 1,000 has its own challenges, but when you're at the scale you're making 1,000, the techniques and ways you approach it, and even the methodologies, are all I'll say easier in a lot of ways. That there's like, you're not hand soldering, you can switch to flexible circuits and stuff like that, that only makes sense at that scale, which if you have the capital to just go there initially is great. But back to the bootstrapping, and I guess, in parallel with that, we all talk about this chip shortage, right? And like, I understand if you're in production, there's these issues, automotive. For us as an early stage startup who, we have what we need to do what we need to do, that's assuming we do it right. So gone are the days, 2-3 years ago where, screw it, I'll just try this, and if it breaks, who cares? Your basically success rate became kind of irrelevant for all intents and purposes, because most things were frankly inexpensive. Whereas now you have to conserve, you have to do it right. So it really puts a lot of pressure on, like, even practice isn't practice because you don't have practice chips anymore.
Wow, that's true. And I mean, you have come to the point that you have to, I mean, I think also since the beginning, right? You have to do whatever you can with what you've got, because we're not in a time where you can, like take things for granted, if we can put it like that.
Like, same thing. Oh, fundraising, it's hard. What are you going to do? Not like.
Totally. I like that. Yeah. I mean, and you know what? I've realized that most of the CEOs and founders that I have had an interview with, they all have the same mentality. And this is something that, I mean, that this leads to success. And you're in the way of, okay, you're saying like, okay, I'm pre-seed, but you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, you know?
I think one of the advantages out of all of this, if I had to say, like, you know, it's not a but, it's an and because of all of that struggle, we're affordable, right? If I had infinite resources, and even with the dissertation, I would have been a doctor a year earlier had I done it certain ways. But when I was doing this, I got a quote for 1,000 of every single thing I was going to use, because if 1,000 costs the same as one, that's not going to have economies of scale. And so as I'm designing this, it's like, well, I'm setting out with my doctoral work to create a company and product. And so everything I do has to be like that. And so with that maker mentality, that bootstrapping nature, the happy accident out of all of that is an affordable system that allows this vision of every worker has a flex spot because they could just show up and do what they need to do.
Wow. And I mean, talking about challenges, now that we have been mentioning them, have you found any critical challenge in the project development when it comes to the purchasing?
Purchasing, I mean, I think there's a bandwidth issue for sure. It's really interesting as we start talking to contract manufacturers and folks, and it's how you manage those relationships, how you pass them off. And I think it's finding that balance. Like I joke with in construction and construction management, right? It seems like every new school leaks. Well, my joke to that, and I don't know if this is true or not, but in my opinion, most of these people have to take the lowest bidder, right? So if there was a law that said you had to take the second lowest bid, would our schools still leak, right? Because like then it's probably a real bid, not the, of course it's going to leak because they have to cut corners because it was the lowest bid. And so like that, I think with an early stage hardware startup is kind of, am I getting a good deal or am I getting burned?
Okay.
And in purchasing, right, you deal with some overseas, you even dealing with domestically, and like, look at Amazon. Oh, glue seems cheap. You know how many times I've gotten expired, dried up glue bottles? Like, you know, like, oh, this seems like a great deal, but it isn't. It's a funny aside. I mean, hey, I love you, Amazon. Without you, this wouldn't exist. We could buy most stuff there. That's our joke. You know, if it's not on there, it's not for us because that's the price point we're looking at. But yeah, there's no easy answers to any of this stuff. And so purchasing is definitely, it's a time consuming activity. And then even more so, you run into, at a certain point, it's not the cost of the thing, it's the time, the lead time.
That it takes.
So it's the real cost is it not coming out right. But of course you don't have cash either. So it's like, I'm out the money and I'm out 3 months. That's even worse. But like, so it's that song and dance of kind of working around that.
Last but not least, Matt, I know that you have been in 10 interviews today and 10 calls, so you're probably super tired. Any last advice that you will give to any future engineers who are listening to us?
That's a great question. And I mean, there's a lot. So I've given a bunch of guest lectures, and at the end of the slides, I usually have like my startup tidbits. So I'm thinking through like, maybe here's a handful of those. I think the first one, since you asked for my advice, is, you know, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. Like the reality is, who am I to tell you? I don't know you up and down. So you got to take everything with a grain of salt, right? So here's some stuff I think, but you're going to go to a different call and somebody's going to give you a different opinion. So like your job as the CEO, or, you know, your job as a human is to put a low pass filter on this, no matter what you're doing, right? And synthesize because if you don't, you're going to, it's like cruise control. If it wasn't damped, you're just going to go back, forth, up, down, you're going to be sick. So like, you got to put that low pass filter on and take everything with a grain of salt. I mean, I think one of the things with running a venture scale business is, you know, there are venture scale, there are lifestyle. There's nothing wrong with either, but lifestyle affords a lifestyle. Venture scale affords no sleep. But, you know, it's a lottery ticket. Maybe we'll pay off. That'd be nice. The reality, though, is in general, if you're hustling and working your butt off, you just got to accept that people are not going to understand. That you'll be in a meeting with somebody who's got a really cushy job, and they're gonna be like, I worked so hard last week. And you're in the back of your mind, you're like, I know you didn't work harder than me. you might have made more money, but it's getting harder. So like, you just gotta, it's that perseverance and like, just going for it. And just, I think one of the biggest things, a piece of advice, read the directions. Why do I own my patents? I read the directions. So many things in life, there's opportunities out there, but if you don't call, you're not going to know it's there. You don't ask. And then even if you do, you don't follow the directions, you ain't going to get it. So there's a lot of information out there that if you just, take the time to go out and persevere, and, you treat people well, and you try to network, and, you meet cool people, you do whatever comes your way, and you never know what's going to happen. And so you have your good days, you have your bad days, but you leave it all on the field. I guess one parting anecdote, I'm not a sports person. Like, skiing is my thing, but I don't do sports football. Like, I don't watch it on TV, not my thing. Football, good for you. But I was watching, of course you watch the Super Bowl, you watch Thanksgiving. So I was watching the Super Bowl, and, you had the winning team, and then you have the losing team. And it's like, even if you're at like just a total, the one team's killing the other 70-0, these professional athletes are playing their butts off, right? And even the losing team in the Super Bowl played their brains out, but they didn't win. And that's the reality for us in startup. For me, I can't, I'd like to think Flex is going to make it. I think we're doing something pretty awesome, and some people agree with me, right? But all I can control is how hard I play the game and leave nothing on the field. And that's what I do every day. Sometimes it goes our way, sometimes it doesn't. But I always think about those professional athletes who didn't win. They still played their hardest. And that's not a reflection on their ability, right? You're the number 2 football player in the world instead of 1. Like, you're still in that upper. And so, like, you can't control whether or not, but you can control how hard you played the game. And at the end of the day, that's what we have to judge ourselves on. And so at least I tell myself that, and that usually makes me feel good.
And it works. It does the trick.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, Matt, this is great advice. I mean, I can tell you, I've never been told, or at least on the podcast, to follow the rules, the directions, how important it is. Do you have any social media handles? Where can people find you? Where can people know more about the company?
Yeah, so I'd say go to our website, Flex Solutions. That's FLXsolutions.com. FlexSolutions.com. We have a newsletter at the bottom. Our social handles are there. We're on YouTube, LinkedIn, all of that. Please feel free to reach out while we're on the advice concept, asking me for a job, giving me a great email I've never seen before, and then asking me something. That's the difference, right?
That's
so
the right way.
Reach out with the cold, like, catch our attention, right? Don't be a rank and file, be that outlier. So yeah, please, anybody out there in the space, love to connect, check us out, flexsolutions.com. And, I'm sure that'll be linked from here.
That's great. And I have to tell you, I did my research. I watched your YouTube videos. I mean, you're a YouTuber, Matt. I don't know what you're doing in your free time. You can go ahead. I mean, you're great at the camera.
Yeah. So she's mentioning I have YouTube/Matt Bilsky. So I have mattbilsky.com and Matt Bilsky on YouTube. In the words of AVE, build cool shit and put it on the internet. So, all the stuff that I can't build a company around. Of course, I don't think I've uploaded in a couple of years. I don't know why, but hopefully as I transition more from building robots to CEOing a robotics company, I'll get to go and invent some more stuff for fun and keep putting things up there. And back to you want a job, I'm a big proponent, make an online portfolio, make some YouTube videos on your phone, show us what you've done that sets you apart. And at least to me, that's what really, I look for. So thanks for bringing that up. I really appreciate it.
I loved it. I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And I kept watching your videos yesterday and I was like, this is great. So congratulations on that. And please do not lose it. I know that you're super busy, but you're like you're saying, maybe later on in a couple of months, couple of years, I mean, you're good at it.
Right, exactly. I joke, that's my retirement plan is, we have the YouTube channel, and then, after our great exit, I'll coach ski racing, ski every day, and build YouTube things at night. So, hey, keep adding those subs, everybody, and I'll be back soon.
Subscribe. Thank you so much. And remember, guys, that you can also find more information, interesting articles, interesting interviews, just like this one with founders, co-founders, people in the engineering path directly on our website, controlhub./builder-nation. You can find us in there. And thank you so much once again, Matt. This was great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody out there.